Guardian chickens. That's my latest idea. I'm going to use chickens to guard my garden. Guardian chickens. Okay, let me explain what I'm talking about. My wife and I have decided to start a garden. We've put it off for a lot of years because we're renting, and we were like, well, if we end up buying a house, we don't want to put all this investment into soil and all these things and then end up moving if we find a house we want to buy. But this year we finally just said, you know what, let's just go ahead and start. If we buy a house, that's great, but in the meantime, let's just get a garden going. So that's what we're going to do. But I've got a lot of ideas. I am going to over-engineer this garden to the nth degree. Gardening where we're at can be a little bit tricky. We have a lot of pests. We have, of course, all the bugs that everybody has. We have gophers and deer and all those kinds of things that want to destroy and ruin and eat a garden. And so I'm going to take a lot of precautions to try to mitigate as much of that as I possibly can. We're going to grow a large garden, at least large by my standards anyway, maybe 30 by 40 or so. So being that we're at a rental, it makes it a little bit challenging because we don't want to invest heavily into infrastructure that we'll have to leave behind. So whatever infrastructure we build and put on this property, we want to be able to take it with us. Obviously the soil that we build up is going to have to be left behind, but anything like fencing will have to go with us. And so all of it's got to be semi-portable. So I have a friend who lives in another part of town, and he's got a flower garden, and deer are everywhere where he lives. And what he did was he built 2 4-foot fences 3 feet apart. And so what he says that does for the deer is because they have bad depth perception, when they see that double fence, they can't really tell if they can make that jump or not, and so they don't even bother. Now, I've heard that if they get really, really hungry, they're starving to death, they will make that jump and just go for it. But by and large, if there's another option, they won't jump that fence because they can't tell where the landing spot is going to be. So what I've decided to do is take 2 electric fences and put them 3 feet apart. So I'll have that double fencing, but with an added layer of electric fencing that if they were to touch it, it's going to shock them and scare them away anyway. So all the way around my garden, I'm going to have a double fence with about 3 feet in between. Where do guardian chickens come in? So that 3-foot perimeter around the garden, the chickens will run in that and eat any bugs that are trying to crawl into my garden. Or maybe there's some flying bugs or whatever, they'll just snack on those bugs, and that will keep the bug population down in the garden. Or snails or things like that that wander out, they will eat those critters. So a while ago I got some free whiskey barrels, and I cut them in half and I made this awesome water feature. And then that summer we had some frogs move in and laid eggs, and then we had tadpoles, and it was really cool. It attracted dragonflies. And that got me thinking with this garden, it would be so nice to bring frogs into this garden to eat some of the pests, the slugs, the bugs, whatever comes in here, as well as the dragonflies, to bring those in there and eat some of the bugs. And kind of balance out the ecosystem, right? To bring in some predators of some of the pests that we would have in this garden. So we should put a pond right in the middle of our garden. When I made that video of that water feature, I used a pump from this company called Papa Soap. You can get it on Amazon, and I put my affiliate link in the description of that video. And after I posted it, that company reached out to me and said, hey, if you ever do another water feature of some kind, let us know. We'd love to give you a product to feature in your video. And I was like, okay, but I didn't have any plans for any kind of a pond or anything like that at the time, so I kind of ignored it. Then when I thought, oh man, I could put this pond right here in the middle of the garden, I reached out to that company and said, hey, is that offer still on the table? And they were excited about the project, and so they said, yeah, sure, we'll send you this pond kit. And it comes with the liner and the pump and the waterfall and the solar panel and lights and all this cool stuff. And I was like, that's awesome, let's do it. And so anyway, they're going to basically, sponsor, as it were, the building of this pond, which is really cool. This pond will sit here right at the edge of the garden, and then the waterfall will kind of come out into that 3-foot space where the chickens will run. And so the chickens will be able to drink the water from the waterfall, as well as play in there and cool off during the summertime. So have like a dual feature, not only watering the chickens and giving them a place to cool down, as well as building a natural environment for the predators, the frogs and the dragonflies, to take care of some of the bugs in the garden. So if you'd like to subscribe so you know when that video comes out, go ahead and do that. But that video will be coming soon. I'll create a few videos, and then I'll do a final video at the very end when it's all said and done. Gophers is another really big problem in our area, but we have a cat, and she is a great mouser, gopher, and she has completely eliminated the gophers on our property. So there are no gopher holes anywhere in this area, as well as the chickens. The chickens will take care of gophers if they can get them. So up here where the chickens are, we don't have any gopher issues as of right now. So we'll see how that goes throughout the summer and the growing season. The first thing we had to do when we decided to build this garden is move the chicken coop. Underneath the chicken coop is this awesome soil where the chickens have, pooped, and we've thrown the bedding down. And this area right here where the chicken coop used to be has just amazing soil. When you dig it up, it's a lot darker and richer compared to another part up here, another part of the land up here that is kind of dry and dead, and there's nothing going on in it. There's no worms, there's nothing. But this area right here is super fertile soil. So we picked the chicken coop up and moved it like 10 feet that way. That was a whole project. I brought my friends over. I forgot to get the video of us doing that. But anyway, the chicken coop's over here now. But that opens up this area to plant some awesome vegetables. We're thinking tomatoes over in this area because it is so fertile. And that's really what we're excited about, is getting a bunch of tomatoes for canning and all that stuff. And we'll show you that when we later in the summer. We'll be canning the vegetables that we get from this garden, hopefully. So this area is really fertile, but the rest of this area over here is not as good. The further you get away from the coop, the worse the soil gets. So I can't afford to spend a ton of money on soil amendments or compost or any of those things. It doesn't make sense in my mind to spend $2,000 on soil to get back $500 in vegetables. Just go to the grocery store at that point. Rather than spend a bunch of money, we're going to spend a bunch of work and time to build up the soil here. But it just doesn't make sense to me financially to do it any differently. So I called a tree trimming company and said, hey, would you drop off wood chips here whenever you have them? They said, yeah, it could be a few weeks before we get there, but yeah, we'll drop some off. And then I was driving down the road here in my neighborhood, and I noticed my neighbor had just piles and piles and piles of wood chips in this empty lot that he has. And so I went and knocked on his door and said, hey, can I have some of your wood chips? And he's like, yeah, sure, I got more than I need. Take whatever you want. I drove over there with my friend's trailer and loaded up 3 full trailer loads of these wood chips and brought them back and dumped them off and piled them up. And then the chickens started scattering them everywhere because that's what chickens do. It's really obnoxious. And then I was looking at them a little bit closer, and I realized that it was eucalyptus. I was like, oh, eucalyptus. I think that's okay. It smells nice, whatever. And then I was watching a Paul Gauci video the next day, and he's like, yeah, you can use whatever wood chips you want. They're all great, except for eucalyptus. I wouldn't use eucalyptus. I was like, oh no, really? So I started doing the research. Yeah, apparently eucalyptus drops this oil that kind of kills whatever plants try to grow underneath it. It's like, man, so what do you do to get rid of that? Well, you have to do hot compost to break down those oils. So that's what I did. That's what all these are. I had to build these rings out of some fencing material that I had laying around. These are 4 foot by 4 foot rings, and I just put that in there, and these are going to be hot compost for a while, and then I'll use it as the mulch after it's broken down. So the problem with this mulch is that it's mostly brown material. To get a good hot compost, you need a good mixture of green material and brown material. And I really don't have a lot of green material because I live in the desert. So what you can do is most coffee shops will actually give away for free their spent coffee grounds. They'll set them aside and put them in a bag, and you can just go in and ask for them, and you can take them for free. And so we went to the local Starbucks, and there's a couple other coffee shops around town, and we just went and collected as many of the spent coffee grounds as we could get. And then I layered those into this compost pile as I built it up. So I did about 4 or 5 inches of compost and then a sprinkling of coffee grounds, then wet the whole thing down to keep the moisture high, and then another layer of wood chips, a little bit more coffee grounds, water, wood chips, coffee grounds, water, wood chips, coffee grounds, and just built it all the way up until it was full. And that will create a really nice hot compost. And we'll do this for about a month or 2 until May, at which time I'll spread it out across the garden. And hopefully that'll break down the eucalyptus oils that would have hurt any plants that are going to grow. We'll see if this works. I'll keep you posted on how this works out for me. I guess it's not terrible, the eucalyptus, but it's not it's not great. So that was a little disappointing. So I went back over to our neighbor's house, and he had several different piles. So I found a pile that didn't have eucalyptus in it. Got a couple more loads, trailer loads, and we're just going to spread those around and just get the ground covered up. That's the big thing. Cover up the ground, and then I'm going to run a sprinkler here to start to break down and soften up the soil, so that by the time we start planting out in May, the ground will be a little bit nicer. So this area of the garden is just dead underneath, and even if we put mulch over it and all that stuff, this soil's still probably not very good. So a lot of this, we're going to put potatoes down. We're going to use the Ruth Stout method. I don't know if you've heard of this or not, but what Ruth Stout did was she just put the potatoes on the ground and then covered them up with mulch. And the potatoes will actually start to grow out, they'll send the roots down into the soil, but then the tubers will all be on top of the soil, and you just keep mounding that up. We have tons and tons of mulch, and we'll just put that over top and build it up and do potatoes here. And hopefully next season, the soil will be a little bit better. Maybe we can plant some other things in here. But the majority of this area over here where it's not as fertile will be potatoes. So we'll have mostly tomatoes over there, potatoes over here, and then we'll do other various little things here and there. This apple tree was here when we moved in. It's a big monstrosity, and it's never really been pruned or taken care of, and it kind of got wild. And I just was like, you know what, I'm just going to trim it back. We always got these tiny little apples, and they were never any good. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to trim it back and let's see what we can do with this. So I just started hacking at it, opening up the middle and having the nice branches, nothing crossing over, and just tried to trim it up a little bit. After I trimmed it, I decided to do research on how to trim an apple tree. I should have done that before. And they say don't take off more than 1/3 when you trim a tree. And I definitely took off more than 1/3 of this tree. So that might have been a disaster. We'll see how it does. But this apple tree is really pretty when it blooms in the springtime, but we'll see how it does if it actually gives us anything. One of the other concerns that I have about the soil is the fact that we live in the desert, which means we get almost no rainfall. So this is the high desert. We get about 10 to 15 inches of rain a year, and throughout the summer it's almost zero. It is basically zero. It hardly ever rains here, which means that I have to water with city water. City water, of course, has chlorine and chloramine and fluoride and other kinds of chemicals in it. And those chemicals, well, it's okay for us to digest and our bodies can handle it for the most part. The soil, the microbes in the soil and the fungus and all of that stuff, it ends up killing it off and ruins your soil quality. So I'm just wondering, like, how do I water the garden without adding all this chlorine to the garden and killing all of my soil? And then I remembered I had gotten an email from a company that said, hey, we do water filters, and if one of your videos fits a water filter for your, like those 3-cylinder under the sink water filters, you know, let us know and you can make a video about it. And I was like, I don't do water filters inside. That's not what my channel's about. So I ignored the email. And then as I was thinking about this garden, I was like, oh, is there a way that I could use that filter to filter the water for the garden? And what's difficult about that is you only get 2 gallons per minute of water flow out of those filters. It's pretty low, and that's really difficult to run a whole sprinkler system off. But I have an idea about how to do that, and I'll make a video about that later. That video will be coming out later this year. Okay, so that's my garden idea. I hope you're excited about it. I'm really excited about it. We're going to try and keep the pests out. We got all kinds of fun and interesting things to do. I'm way over engineering this project, but I think it's going to be a ton of fun. So follow along, and if you want to check out that water feature video that I made, just click on it right here.